The United Nations has passed more resolutions condemning Israel than all other nations combined. What you don't do can send you to hell. Antisemitism is a spirit. It's not a belief system. It's a spirit. And when you turn against the Jews, it's a sign that something bad is happening inside of you. Whether you're saved or not saved, if Jesus condemned the goats to hell for what they haven't done, imagine the judgment for those who have spoken or acted against the Jews. Hey, before we get started today, I just wanted to say my team told me something that surprised me, and that is about half of you guys watching on YouTube, you are not subscribed to this channel. So if you do me a favor for just a minute, just look down and just click the subscribe button and the like button. Now, when you click the subscribe button, it just means you're going to get all the information that we put out. You're not going to miss information that could encourage you and equip you to live in these end times. Also, when you like it, it just means that more people find out about it. I want you to tell people about us, first of all, but also when you like it, it helps us tremendously. Would you take just a second and hit the subscribe and the like button so that all of you guys are subscribed and all of you guys are telling other people about us? That's going to be a huge blessing. Welcome to the Tipping Point Show. I'm Jimmy Evans. I'm so glad that you've joined me today. I have a message that I'm bringing today on anti-Semitism. It's called the judgment of the Jews. There's a judgment coming. Jesus himself is going to judge the world based on how we treated the Jewish people. Very important message, especially in light of all the anti-Semitism that's going on. But this is a shocking judgment that everyone needs to hear about. Very shocking what Jesus says about what's going to happen when he judges the world based on how they treated the Jewish people. Before I get into the teaching, let me just say we reached our goal. We've been raising money since October. Half the money has been going to Tipping Point to support this ministry and help grow this ministry. And half of it goes to Magen David Adom. That is the Red Star of David. This is the medical relief agency for the entire nation of Israel. They're the only official relief agency for the entire medical agency for the entire nation of Israel. And they do a tremendous work there of taking care of the Jewish people and really everyone there in Israel. And so right now, we're at $511,000. And so what we're going to be able to do is we're going to give $115,000 to Magen David Adom to buy an ambulance. Now, this ambulance will be dedicated to Tipping Point Prophecy Partners. And so there'll be a special dedication service of that ambulance. And we'll show that to you when it happens. But you know something? There's going to be an ambulance going all over the nation of Israel helping people. And you're the reason that it happened. And this is the practical help that we're giving to the Jewish people because of you guys who care. So thank you for your giving. We're going to give $72,000 to train 2 paramedics. Now, $63,000 for medical supplies. Now, we're going to be able to give more than that because right now we have $511,000. We're going to keep taking money in for the rest of this week. At the end of this week, we'll stop the Magen David Adom project. But right now, we'll be able to give $74,000 and $11,000 more for medical equipment. Thank you so much to those of you who have given. What a great thing to be able to help such a fantastic agency. And I had lunch with the international president, the national president, and their local correspondent here, representative in this area. These are wonderful people doing a great work. And so thank you so much for helping Tipping Point, and thank you so much for helping Magen David Adom and the nation of Israel. And we'll keep you updated on that. But for the rest of this week, we'll keep taking in money. So if you want to give and add to the total, keep giving. Go to endtimes.com, donate there, and you can give, and we'll just keep adding to the total. And at the end of this week, we'll cut that off, and we'll write the check to them, and we'll keep you up to date, and we'll show you what happens when we deliver the gift to them and also when they dedicate that ambulance. What a blessing. And so this message is something that the Lord put on my heart, and I've been praying about for weeks, and it's called the judgment of the Jews. And there's a judgment coming for the world at the second coming of Jesus that is referred to in Matthew chapter 25 as the sheep and goat judgment. I'm going to read that passage in just a few minutes, but it's a shocking prophetic warning by Jesus himself about how he will judge people based on how they treated the Jews during the tribulation. Now, this is also something that matters in our day right now. So before I read that, I want to make some points. And the first is anti-Semitism is one of the major signs that the return of Jesus is soon. Remember, at the end of this age, when Jesus physically returns with us, his church, the entire world has gathered to destroy the Jews and take the land of Israel. Zechariah chapter 12, verses 2 and 3, here's what it says. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all the nations of the earth are gathered against it. Listen to that. All the nations of the earth are gathered against it. I'm about to read you some statistics here in just a minute about the United Nations and what's going on with Israel right now, but it is shocking and it's sad. This is Zechariah 14, beginning with verse 1. Behold, the day of the Lord is coming, and your spoil will be divided in your midst. For I will gather all the nations to battle against Jerusalem. The city shall be taken, the houses rifled, and the women ravished. Half the city shall go into captivity, but the remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations as he fights in the day of battle. And in that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two, from east to west, making a very large valley. Half the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it toward the south. Then ye shall flee through my mountain valley, for the mountain valley shall reach to Azal. Yes, ye shall flee, as you fled from the earthquake in the days of Uzziah the king. Thus the Lord my God will come, and all the saints with you. Now notice what it says there. He's going to gather all the nations against Jerusalem. The Lord himself is going to fight against them, and we're going to be with him. Revelation 19 is the exact picture. It's a New Testament picture of the exact same occurrence of the second coming, and we, his bride, are with him when he returns. The last scene of this age is the entire world is going to gather against Israel. The United Nations Human Rights Council has a standing agenda item that's called Item 7 that is about Israel. They're the only nation in the world with a standing agenda item. In other words, every time the United Nations Human Rights Council meets, they always talk about Israel. No other nation in the world, not the Palestinians, Iran, Russia, North Korea, only Israel. The United Nations has passed more resolutions condemning Israel than all other nations combined. This tiny, tiny little nation of 9 million people has been condemned more than all other nations combined. In 2022, Israel received 15 condemnatory resolutions, while Russia, North Korea, Syria, and Iran combined only received 9 total. You think about that just a minute. Since 2006, nearly 46% of all United Nations Human Rights Council country-specific resolutions have targeted Israel alone. The United Nations failed to condemn Hamas for the October 7th massacre that killed 1,200 Israelis, only calling for ceasefires. That's all they did. Authoritarian regimes with documented human rights violations consistently vote against Israel while facing minimal United Nations scrutiny themselves. Listen to this statement here. Former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan admitted the United Nations gives an impression of bias, stating it served, here's what he said, quote, it serves all the world's people but one, the Jews, close quote. That's what the former the Secretary General of the United Nations said. The United Nations gives the appearance that we serve all the world's people but one, the Jews, and it's the truth. This is all Bible prophecy fulfilled, and it proves the clear intention of the world to destroy the nation of Israel. And remember, when the tribulation begins, the church is removed, and Israel loses the support of the nations like the United States and believers all around the world. Anti-Semitism is exploding among conservatives in America and in the church. It's shocking. Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, they're rabidly anti-Semitic and have some of the largest audiences in the world. They're poisoning the minds of young people and those who are ignorant of Bible and world history. The anti-Zionist movement is raging, and there are demonstrations against Israel all over the world. And by the way, Zionism is the belief that the Jews have the right of self-determination in their own homeland. That's what Zionism is. The Jews have the right of self-determination in the nation of Israel. The Jewish people, by the way, the Jewish people have perpetually inhabited the land of Israel for the past 3,400 years since the days of Moses, when he led them to the land and they went into the land under the leadership of Joshua. 3,400 years before, during, and after Babylon. Some people believe that when the Jews were defeated by the Babylonians, that all the Jews were removed from the land. They weren't. There were many still in the land while, Daniel and all of his friends and people and relatives were there in Babylon. There were many Jews still in the land when they returned. Before, during, and after the Romans. The Romans defeated the Jews in AD 70, killed around 1 million people, destroyed the city of Jerusalem, destroyed the temple and the Temple Mount. When they took the captives from Israel, many Jews were still there. Many Jews were there before 1948. There has always been a presence of Jewish people in the Holy Land for the past 3,400 years. The history of Israel is Jewish. The archaeology of Israel is Jewish. The spiritual history of Israel is Jewish. But in spite of this, the world rejects Israel's right to the land and determine their own destiny. It's the essence of anti-Semitism. So let me go back to the sheep and goat judgment here for just a minute. In this text of Scripture, in Matthew chapter 25, Jesus is giving a clear warning to all of us about how we treat the Jewish people. Now, and I'll read this passage, and I'm going to prove to you now this is concerning the Jewish people. When he's talking about the least of these, he's talking about the Jews, and I'll prove it to you in Scripture. Matthew chapter 25, in Matthew 24, it's all about the end times. Jesus was asked when the end was going to come, and he gave the signs of the times. Then in Matthew 25, he's talking about judgment. He talks about the 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish, and how the 5 wise went into the wedding with the bridegroom. The 5 foolish were rejected, and the bridegroom said, I don't know you. He then talked about the parable of the talents. That we're going to be judged. That judgment, by the way, of the virgins is whether we know Jesus or not, because that's the basis of eternity, is whether we have a personal relationship with Jesus. Then he talked about the parable of the talents, that one man was given 5 talents, 1, 2, 1, 1, and then the master went away, and he came back and called them into an account. And what he's telling us is we're going to be called into account for how we've stewarded our lives. We are saved by grace, but we are judged based on our works, what we've done with what God gave us. Jesus says in Revelation 22, behold, I'm coming quickly, and my reward is with me to give to every man according to his works. And so we are saved by grace. We're judged according to works, and we're forgiven by grace. When we do something wrong, God forgives us by his grace. But one day we will all stand, as believers, we'll stand before the judgment seat of Christ, and we'll be judged. No one goes to hell from the judgment seat of Christ, but we're judged based on what we've done with our lives. That's the second thing Jesus told, the parable of the talents. The third thing that Jesus says in Matthew 25 is a true story. This is not a parable. This is a true story. This is Matthew 25, beginning with verse 31. This is Jesus. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Now, this is the millennial kingdom. The second coming happens. He comes physically in his glory with all of his angels, with us, and he's now sitting on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people from one another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on the right, come, you are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and welcome you, or naked and clothe you? And when did we see you sick or in prison and visit you? The king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers. And that word brothers there also means brothers and sisters. You did it to me. Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. I was hungry, you gave me no food. I was thirsty, you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, you did not visit me. Then they also answer, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister to you? Then he will answer them, saying, Truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. Now, this is at the end of the tribulation, in the beginning of Jesus' millennial reign. All of the survivors of the tribulation are being judged based on how they treated the Jewish people. And so when Jesus says, the least of these, my brethren, he's talking about the Jewish people. And I'll read you the text of Scripture here in just a minute, proving that point. But he's talking about all of the survivors of the tribulation are being judged based on how they treated the least of these, my brothers, and again, brothers and sisters. The least of these refers to Jews who are suffering and being persecuted during the tribulation. According to Zechariah 13:8, 2/3 of Jews are killed during the tribulation, and only 1/3 survive. According to Jesus in Matthew chapter 24 and the Apostle John in Revelation chapter 12, at the midpoint in the tribulation, the Antichrist will viciously attack the Jews in Israel and around the world, seeking to destroy them. Okay, so during the tribulation, all hell breaks loose against the Jewish people. It's bad today. This is just the beginning. The anti-Semitism that we see in the world today is just the beginning of what will ultimately wipe out 2/3 of the Jewish people. Only 1/3 will survive, but they'll all be saved when Jesus returns. So let me prove to you now that when Jesus says the least of these, because some people, when he's saying the least of these, he's just talking about people all over the world or the downtrodden. No, he's talking about Jews. Joel chapter 3 is a parallel text to Matthew chapter 24 and the judgment of the sheep and goats. So while I'm reading this to you, listen to this in the context of, in the Old Testament, this is God describing the sheep and goat judgment. In the New Testament, at the second coming. This is Joel chapter 3. Behold, in those days and at that time, when I restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather all the nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. I will enter into judgment with them there, listen, on behalf of my people and my heritage Israel, because they have scattered them among the nations and they have divided up my land. They've cast lots for my people and have traded a boy for a prostitute and have sold a girl for wine and have drunk it. Is this talking about the mistreatment of the Jews? God says, in those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, he's talking about 1948. He's talking about the days that we're living in right now. In that same period of time, I'm going to bring all the nations down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. The valley of Jehoshaphat is the valley between the Mount of Olives and the Temple Mount. And I'm going to enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage, Israel. Okay? My people, my heritage, Israel, is you've scattered them among the nations and you've divided up my land. This is what's happening right now in the world. And God says, at the end, I'm going to judge this. And the people during the tribulation that don't help the Jews, they're going to hell. And the people during the tribulation that help the Jews, they're going to enter into the millennial kingdom of Jesus. Joel chapter 3, let's keep reading. This is Joel 3 again, beginning with verse 14. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon are darkened, and the stars withdraw their shining. The Lord roars from Zion and utters his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth quake. But the Lord is a refuge to his people. He is a stronghold to the people of Israel. So Joel chapter 3 in the Old Testament version is an Old Testament version of the sheep and goat judgment of Matthew chapter 25. So let me go back to the sheep and goat judgment for just a minute. Here are the shocking truths about the sheep and goat judgment. And this is shocking. Okay, everybody needs to hear this. Okay, we need to understand this. Jesus didn't judge the people based on whether they believed in him or not. In the sheep and goat judgment, Jesus didn't say, you didn't receive me as Lord of your life, you're going to hell. You did receive me as Lord of your life, and you're going to go and enter into my kingdom. He judged them based on how they treated the Jews, and that was the basis of proving their relationship with him. How did he know? They all called him Lord. The goats called him Lord. You know, just like the virgins, all the virgins pretended that they were going to marry the bridegroom, but only half of them did. And the other half, he said, I don't know you. I don't have a relationship with you. And so all these people say to him, Lord, when did we see you like that? And Jesus said, when you did it to the least of these, my brethren, the Jews, during the tribulation, you did it to me. Okay. When you didn't do it, you didn't. In other words, I know who believes in me based on how you treat the Jewish people. Okay. And this is something that everybody needs to listen to. Okay. So you just need to understand that Jesus takes personally. This is my second point, shocking point about the sheep and goat judgment. Jesus personally identifies with every Jewish person and how they're treated, even the least of them. He said, when you didn't do it to the most insignificant Jew, I took that personally. Jesus says in Genesis 12:3, I will bless those who bless you. In him who dishonors you, I will curse. And in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. And so this is such a huge issue that we need to understand for people right now, for people who say they're believers and they're anti-Israel. I mean, that's just a major warning flag. So listen, our Savior is a Jew. I didn't say he was a Jew. I said he is a Jew. Jesus is a Jew. His mother is a Jew. Mary is a Jew. Our Bible is Jewish. The church started 100% Jewish, and then they started letting the Gentiles in. Okay, the church started Jewish. When Jesus returns, he's returning to Jerusalem, not Washington, D.C. or Paris, France or London, England or something like that. He's returning to Jerusalem. We live in eternity in the New Jerusalem. By the way, did you know the 12 gates of the New Jerusalem where we're going to live for all of eternity with Jesus, the 12 gates all have a name of a Jew on them, the patriarchs of Israel. Did you know the New Jerusalem has 12 foundations? Did you know the names of the 12 apostles, all Jews, are going to be on those foundations? We're going to live with a Jew, surrounded by Jewish people and Jewish names. That you can't be anti-Semitic and pretend that you love Jesus. Or, how do you do that? And by the way, God told Abraham, in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. Through the Jews, we got Jesus Christ, we got the Bible, and we got the church. The most important man, the most important book, and the most important organization, institution in the history of the world came through the Jewish people. And so I'm saying Jesus takes it personally. We need to understand the way that we treat Jewish people is very important. Here's another shocking truth, and this is shocking. Jesus didn't send the goats to hell for anything they did. Now, why don't you listen to that? Jesus didn't send the goats to hell for anything they did, and he never accused them of being anti-Semitic. He never said, you said bad things, you did bad things, you persecuted the people. It's for what they didn't do. When you didn't do it, see, there are two types of sins. There's a sin of commission, a sin that I committed. There's also the sins of omission, the thing I didn't do. I didn't surrender my life to the Lord. I didn't help the Jews when I could. I didn't help a person when I could. Jesus said, because you didn't do it to them, I took it personally. Now you go to hell that was prepared for the devil and his angels. What you don't do can send you to hell. That's what I'm saying. Some people might brag that they've never been anti-Semitic. Some people might say, well, I've never done anything against a Jewish person. Don't take comfort in that. Don't take comfort in what you haven't done. You have to do something. We live in a time, we can't sit back and watch the anti-Semitism and the world turn against Israel, and as believers just sit back and do nothing. We have a responsibility to say something. We have a responsibility to do something. That's why we support Israel the way that we do, is because we're not going to sit back and let me tell you something. You pay a price for this. You become a target when you begin to stand with Israel. When you wear a shirt with the Star of David on it, go out in public. There's going to be issues there, and so we are not ashamed in any way, and we will not shrink back. Let me tell you how I fell in love with Israel. And if you heard this before, you can fast forward or something. But this is how I fell in love with Israel, and this is why I know it's important. I got saved at 19 years old. And about a month after I got saved, someone told me I need to start reading the Bible, and I didn't have a Bible. And so my wife and I went to a Bible bookstore. And I went to this Bible bookstore, and there was, I was surprised how many books there were in there other than the Bible. And that's when I bought the late great Planet Earth, the book on prophecy, and started studying prophecy. That was 52 years ago. And there was a poster on the wall. I noticed this poster, and it was a poster that had a menorah. I didn't know what that was. And it said Israel. It just had one name, Israel. I didn't know what that meant. And so I saw this poster. Now, when I saw that poster, I fell deeply, madly in love with that poster, and I didn't even know what it meant. And I went up to the man at the counter, who was the owner of the store, and I said to him that poster over there is real. He said, Israel. I said, what is that? And he said, well, it's a nation. And I said, what does that mean? He said, well, I mean, it's a country. I said, well, so? He said, well, it's a country in the Middle East. And I said, so what does it mean? He said, Jesus. I said, what do you mean Jesus? He said, Jesus, that's where Jesus is from. I said, oh, Jesus is right. He said, yeah, he's a Jew. And I said, what's a Jew? He said, well, Jesus was a Jew. I didn't know what a Jew was. I didn't know what Israel was. From that moment, I have been deeply, deeply in love with Israel. That's why I know it's spiritual and supernatural. Antisemitism is a spirit. It's not a belief system. It's a spirit. And when you turn against the Jews, it's a sign that something bad is happening inside of you. Whether you're saved or not saved, only Jesus knows. But what I know about myself and my wife also, we were supernaturally put in love with the nation of Israel. It's not because I grew up in the Bible Belt, because I grew up lost. It's not because someone indoctrinated me about Israel. I never heard of Israel in my life. I didn't know what a Jew was. All I know is supernaturally, God put love for the nation of Israel inside of me. See, if Jesus condemned the goats to hell for what they haven't done, imagine the judgment for those who have spoken or acted against the Jews or Israel. If people went to hell for the sin of omission, imagine the judgment for people who have persecuted the Jewish people. This is Jesus telling this story. This is Jesus, not a story about 2,000 years ago, a story about today, a story about what's going to happen to people in the world right now that don't help the Jewish people and don't stand with them in their hour of need. Here's lastly, the fourth shocking truth about this judgment. The consequences of helping the Jews or not helping them were eternal and irreversible. There was no second chance. At the end of the tribulation, when Jesus returns and he calls the world into judgment, it's game, set, and match. There's no do-overs. And so we here at Tipping Point, we are dedicated to helping the nation of Israel. We want to educate and encourage you related to the times we're living in, to keep you up to date with things that are happening in the world and how that relates to Bible prophecy and all of that. And I hope that you're blessed by this ministry. But we're also committed to the nation of Israel. That's why we always have projects that are going on that we're in some way trying to help them, in very practical ways. And by the way, in Matthew chapter 25, when Jesus is talking about the sheep and goat judgment, notice how practical he was. He said, I was hungry, you didn't provide food for me. I was naked, you didn't provide clothing for me. I was sick, and you didn't visit me. Listen, so we're just now giving over $250,000 to Magen David Adom to provide medical assistance to the Jewish people. So you can check that box. For all of you who have given toward that, we are visiting them through Magen David Adom. We are helping the Jewish people. What Jesus is talking about there are very doable things for all of us and very practical things for all of us. Let me say this about the money that we're giving to the Jewish people, because I want you to know this, and I've said this before, but I want to say it again. We are not helping them because they're saved. We are not saying to them, we're going to give you this money, but we want to convert you to Jesus. We want them to receive Jesus. We're doing this to let them know that we love them and they're important to us. And we want this to be a testimony of God's love to them. And if Jesus says, they know we're believers. Okay, all the people we give to, they know we're believers. Can I tell you that we've heard this several times of how blessed and shocked they are that believers are giving this money to them like this, knowing that they're Jewish. We're not giving this to them because we agree with everything Israel does. We're doing it because they're Jewish. They are the lineage of Jesus Christ, and they're special to God by covenant. A Jewish person, in order to be saved, they have to receive Jesus as their Messiah. But they're special by covenant. Even if they're not saved, they're special by covenant. And this is a group of people that Jesus is a part of this group. He's a Jew. The apostles are Jewish. The patriarchs are Jewish. The Bible's Jewish. And we're going to live for all of eternity with a Jew as our husband in a New Jerusalem, a city, a Jewish city. And if we're not comfortable with the Jews, then we've got something that we need to learn, is that Dr. John Anderson and I have written a book called Haman's Lies. And this is going to be coming out here in the next few weeks. But this book, what we've done in this book is we're talking about the spirit of Haman. Remember Haman in the book of Esther? He was the one who wanted to destroy all the Jews. And Esther stood up, and in the midst of risking her own life, she stood up, and Esther said, "If I perish, I perish." And Mordecai, her uncle, said, "Who knows if God hasn't put you here for such a time as this?" We've been put here on the earth for such a time as this. We need to preach the gospel. We want people to get saved all over the world. We want to let people know that Jesus is coming and to be a herald of the return of Jesus so that believers are prepared and they can be prepared when Jesus returns. And we want to stand with the nation of Israel. That's what we're going to do. We're going to stand with the nation of Israel. And on that day of judgment, I believe one of the things that's going to happen is our true relationship with Jesus is going to be revealed. And I'm saying to you, if you're a person listening to me right now, you may have heard all the baloney about Israel and all the anti-Semitism and may have been confused. This book that John and I have written, we go through 25 lies that people are telling about Israel that are turning people against Israel. Young people by the droves are turning against Israel. And we go through these 25 lies and we tell the truth. And this book will be available. I'll tell you when it comes out, but it's called Haman's Lies, in exposing the ancient roots of anti-Semitism and why the spirit of Esther must arise. And I'm saying to you, we can't sit back and do nothing. We can't sit back and do nothing. The goats went to hell for that exact thing. We've got to stand up and do something. Preach the gospel, herald the return of Jesus, and stand with the nation of Israel. That is why this ministry exists. And I want to say one more time how thankful I am to you guys for standing with us, for helping us as a ministry, but also Magin David Dome. It's just going to be such a thrill to write that check and to see the blessing that is to them and to the nation of Israel. And so we're going to have more projects coming up in the future that we'll tell you about. If you want to give to Tipping Point and to this Magin David Dome project, this will go on till the end of this week. Go to endtimes.com, donate there. Thank you so much for your generous donations and for standing with us. And we're going to keep coming back to you. More teachings, more interviews, keep you encouraged, keep you equipped to live in these days, and also to love the nation of Israel and to stand with them. Thank you for joining me today. God bless you.